your journey to become a chef came after a long career as a courtroom trial attorney. So, talk to me about that. Where did your passion for food and cooking come from, and how did it eventually get you to change careers and pursue cooking and food full time?
Yeah, it's a long story and a good question. The Instagram handle fed itself basically because my story is about being from courtroom to kitchen. I came to Miami in 2003 as a new lawyer. I started off at the state attorney's office here as a prosecutor. I always wanted to be involved in law growing up. I always enjoyed arguing, I guess my parents would say. And so I had a passion for international law and human rights at first, and so I went to law school. I came out here and started practicing law in 2003, and I was good at it. I was a trial attorney. I was in the courtroom. I've tried, every kind of case through, capital murder and
Wow.
down to misdemeanors. And it's a great profession, and it can be rewarding at times, but it's extremely mentally challenging. And when you do those kind of cases and you see that kind of thing that happens, and you're living that on a daily basis, it sort of gets into your psyche after a while. So I stopped prosecuting, and I tried to find other forms of law that I felt were a little less resistance mentally. And soon found that those were also sort of giving me a general unsatisfaction in life. So about 5 years ago, one of the benefits of being a lawyer was at least I was afforded money to travel and had some resources. And I was on a trip to Colombia, actually, and I was staying at a private island vacation villa, like a beach villa. I just looked it up on, hotels.com or something and found it. It was like a private island. Oh, this sounds really cool.
Wow.
So we took a little boat from Cartagena out to this island. It's a chain of islands off Cartagena. One of them is even owned by Pablo Escobar, was at one time. And it's this very small little island. They're coral islands, and they were privately owned. And this couple bought the island and built it up from scratch into a eco beach shack resort. Maybe 6 bungalows for couples, a nice little, restaurant type hall, and very basic, solar, all that sort of stuff. And I met this guy, and the minute I met him, I could just see his energy. I could see how happy he was in life. And it wasn't until later that night I realized it, because I pulled up during the day. I meet this guy. He's, in his guayabera, and he's, doing the books on the dock and everything. I said, oh, this looks pretty cool. But later that night, it's really just me and my wife and another couple. And he comes out with, Cuban cigars and a bottle of Cuban rum. And he starts shooting the stuff with us
The
and tells
breeze.
us his story. And it turns out his story was similar to mine. And his wife were both, one was a high-powered attorney, one was a corporate CEO, burning themselves out working in Medellin at the time. And they were in their 40s. And he's like, they both just said, I can't do this anymore. I've got to do something else. So they sold everything and spent the next 8 years building this island resort. And now they sit there and they run this resort, the two of them. She does the food, she supervises everything. They have some staff, but they live in paradise. And more importantly, they live happiness. And so I said to myself, this guy has happiness. Like, how do I get some of that? I want some of that. And so I started thinking to myself, like, what in life is going to make me happy? Like, what would make me happier than I am now? What would bring me happiness in my 50s and 60s, which aren't that far off the line? And my mind just kept going back to food. It kept going back to food. It kept going back to how I love to cook and how I love to make people happy through my food. And that sort of that feeling you get, that everyone gets when you eat a good meal and you're ultimately satiated from that meal, or you eat at that fancy restaurant, you have that like blissful feeling on you. That's a feeling that only food and a few other things can do. And so I said to myself, maybe I can be a part of this. Maybe I can find my niche in that somewhere, so that when I'm in my 50s, like he was probably, I think, 55 at the time or something, right? So he's not even retirement age by American standards, retirement age. And here he is, passively retired, getting, active income on a private island that he's loving life at now. And I said to myself, you can change your life and find something that makes you happy. So that's what started the journey, and that's what brought me to culinary school, and that's what got me on my path, I guess.
Wow.